Hello, you are listening to the Galway Film Podcast. You're here with George Cohen, and I'm joined today by Luke Byrne,
Hello.
Robin Koenig, and Harry Giles. How you doing, guys?
Well, good, really good.
We're here today from Clonmara in Galway, the UNESCO city of film, rather. All right, guys. First of all, I know this is your first year outside of doing the Leaving Cert.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to talk to you today just about how you got into studying film and what film means to you. I'll start with yourself, Harry. What was it for you that you wanted to come and study film?
Well, there was a number of things really. There was a documentary done on my grandfather a good few years ago. It was recorded maybe around 1998, around the late 90s anyways. And it was brought out for viewing when I was just coming into secondary school, and it was one of the first times that film had interacted with my life, and it really inspired me. It was the beginning of the inspiration. I loved the documentary, and I just wanted to see.
I can imagine seeing your grandfather documented in such a way.
It was some archival footage. He was very unwell at the time, and he died a week after they finished. Unfortunately, but it's great to have because of that. Like, it was the last time. There's a at the end of the documentary. There's a footage of him going back to his home house maybe a week before he passed away, and it was just lovely of him having his last session in his home house.
What a tribute!
Yeah, it was great.
And so you kind of saw then that film was a medium that had such power, as something special in your life.
Yeah, I found that I only started getting when technology wasn't really around in my house when I was younger. I used to play outside. I'd use my surroundings because I'm from the country. But when I was 12, we got our first computer, and from there, I downloaded Final Cut Pro. And I was just editing little videos for myself.
You were editing before you came into college?
Before I came into college.
Working away, yeah.
When I was in maybe second year. And then as it went along, I started doing longer clips for editing. I started doing clips for my friends' birthdays that were 25 minutes long each. So it's what kept me going, and I found that time passed very fast when I was doing this, and it was something I enjoyed, so
I can
that's
imagine.
why I did it.
So it kind of made sense to go and study it on a larger scale, huh?
Although my parents wanted me to do music in different courses, but and that was my second and third choice, but film was my number one.
Music. You're from a music background.
Yeah.
So I suppose in a way the two go hand in hand, music and film.
Yeah.
They're both they're creating out of the bare essentials, and you have to everything from tone to narration kind of goes throughout both of them. So it's interesting to have a music background as well for film, especially.
Definitely.
What about you guys? Robin, you're from Mayo actually, from Foxford and Mayo. Did you get into film during school, or has it always been part of your life?
Well, I always, as most people, I always enjoyed films. I think my interest in film came from I watched a lot of the special features to films, when DVDs became a thing.
Yeah,
watched the features, and I'd read film critics and stuff like that, or watch people talk about film, which sort of got me thinking. I learned a lot about mistakes made in making films. And I thought, well, I could do this better than somebody.
Sure.
Obviously not all of them, but I felt like it would be interesting to have a film that you made yourself and go through that whole process, and
Absolutely.
and have such creative input in something that's so visual.
What kind of films are you into yourself? What did you watching?
I just sort of most things. I didn't have a particular thing that I liked. Some things I dislike, wouldn't particularly watch rom-coms or whatever, but that's just. They just don't.
You're not a rom-com kind of guy.
Not really, no. I mean, there's one. What's the one? 4 Weddings and a Funeral. That's a good
of course, yeah.
Yeah, but
Mike Neal's classic. What about you, Luke? Are you a rom-com kind of guy?
I'd say no, but I do watch them. I enjoy them the odd time. But no, the films that kind of piqued my interest in film was when I was younger, and the father kind of put on Goodfellas,
Yeah.
and I watched that and my mind was blown on, like, this is really good storytelling. I
Absolutely,
didn't
yeah.
think stories could be told quite like that on film, and I kind of just got so interested. I used to just look up like all these behind the scenes and biographies on the directors and how they got into it and how they just make things like that. And
It's interesting with something with Goodfellas and the storytelling aspect of it. When we come into our first year, we come in with all these films in our head, especially the strong storytelling, the narration. But we've been thrust into documentary making.
Yeah.
Straight off. Have you had any, besides you and your grandfather, have you had any interest in documentaries beforehand before you came in?
I remember, so my earliest memories actually are watching the old David Attenborough Life of Mammals, like it was on RTE or something, like back like in the 2000s.
Great documentaries.
And my dad recorded them onto the video, and we rewatched them, and that was probably my first interaction documentary, and I definitely still enjoy them, so I'm still definitely enjoying doing documentary, and I might consider taking it on in third year as well.
Collectively, is this something that you would be interested in?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I used to be like, I still am in love with Louis Theroux and the stuff he does, and I used to he'd be up on Netflix, so I just watch every single one of his documentaries, and I find his way of interviewing people where he integrates himself into the place, but he doesn't get involved opinion wise, and I find that to be it is a difficult thing to do when you're making a documentary. And
even to approach contributors and to approach a story, it is you really do have to step into the deep end a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I suppose we've all kind of tried our hand at documentary making so far. Harry, how have you found it?
So far, yeah. I actually came into this course thinking that I would be making documentaries, and I have started on film as well as documentaries, and both sides they're the same but very different at the same time.
Yeah.
I found making a documentary, you don't know what's going to happen all the time, and it's kind of I love improvisation, and that's what kind of makes it special towards me. Like when you don't know how a shoot's going to go, like the person could say something out of the blue, or the emotions could show completely differently than what you expected.
Exactly what might end up shaping the film as a whole.
It could completely shape it. Like the documentary we watched there a few weeks ago about the revolution.
Yeah. The revolution will not be televised.
Yeah.
Set in Venezuela, right?
Venezuela, yeah. That just shows how different a documentary could turn out to be.
Yeah.
Which is just great. I just love
it. It takes balls, doesn't it, to kind of be in the middle of stories like that. You know, I mean, that's in the middle of a rise and protest, but you need to be gutsy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I suppose that transition from being an outsider looking at documentary and then actually being inside and creating them, it's kind of strange.
And it makes that documentary was so powerful. It it gives you this perspective that you wouldn't have seen if that documentary was made, if it wasn't made, And it changed my opinion of the US's foreign policy anyway.
100%, yeah.
And what about you, Luke? I mean, with dealing with people in documentary, I mean, it's not all straightforward, is it?
No, like you come in thinking, especially with our documentary, with our subjects, you think they're going to cooperate in a way, but with documentary they might always be, good with you, and they mightn't take well to direction, which is something I wasn't prepared for at all.
Yeah.
It was my first piece I actually directed and worked on all together, and it was tough, but I prefer things being tough because you learn more from from the people that are difficult than someone that just do whatever you say, like
being thrown into the deep end as such.
Yeah.
And Robin, you were had a producing role in documentary so far. How did you find that? That's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paperwork to get together, right?
It was right. It was kind of satisfying to have everything done properly. Seeing as it was very, very small production, no budget whatsoever, all I really had to worry about was making sure all the release forms were signed, all the location agreements organised, schedules, things like that, and I'd help out fantastic director Megan, who was on the show previously. So that was it was, and also we fortunately our contributor was interested and was willing to cooperate, which definitely helps. I never considered producing to be something I'd be interested in, but I might consider it now. I'm not really sure as of yet what exact direction I want to go into. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. I mean, how much organisation is actually involved in filmmaking. You know, throughout different roles. I mean, even when we're editing, the first thing we learn is to organise all your clips, get it together. You know, I wasn't necessarily organised in school, or even the way I live my life isn't necessarily organised. But you really do need to get into that mode, that kind of mode of mind to kind of organise stuff together, know where everything is at, so you can refer to it straight away.
Because people are relying on you to get it organised. Yeah. It's not like, because if it was just me, I wouldn't be organised at all. But when you feel like other people are relying on you to get it made right, and get it made in a certain time frame, there's more of a will to get it right, and also creative pride as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thing as well, the fact that you are working with other people. And this is a very group work orientated course. How do you find the process of collaboration?
I think it's a fantastic thing. Like you're going to be working with people no matter what area you're in life. So I find, like, with the people in this course, we work with each other so well. And we've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people in the course, and we have more opportunities to work with people in different groups and stuff like that. So it's just a brilliant way of like throwing ideas at each other, and like a lot of our ideas come from like just standing around and just bouncing ideas off each other, and then next thing you know, there's a film being made.
By being yourselves as well, by laughing and joking around.
That's it. Like, ideas from it. Next thing you have a premise for a short film, and it's really awesome to kind of to talk to people that are like minded.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like back in secondary school, I was let down over and over again with these group projects, but because we're all in a course that we all have an interest in some certain degree. We're organised ourselves because it's enjoyable, and everyone works so well together. We just click. It doesn't matter who's with who in our course. Like we work really, really well together. And we learn a lot about each other, and we get very close towards each other while doing these projects.
It does bring people closer, doesn't it? I mean, I know when we first started, we were doing projects, going around taking a picture of, get a red card, get a picture of
but even that, it was a really good bonding exercise.
Exactly. And then you realise how important it was to bring people together within the course.
Because actually we were all together for that.
That's right. Actually, that's true. Going around looking for different locations and looking for different things to shoot. Actually, And it is a great way to like bring people closer, and just even as a conversation starter. How are we doing? And it brings people out of their shell and brings them kind of closer together. Robin, how have you found being in Galway? You're from Mayo. Have you found? First of all, did you know Galway was a UNESCO city?
I did before I found out pretty much the first day of this course. That someone told me. No, I didn't know Galway was a UNESCO city of film. I mean, Galway isn't that far from Mayo.
Sure.
Driving wise, it's about 2 to 3 hours on the bus or something like that. But there are big differences. Obviously, I mean, it's a city, and Mayo doesn't have many cities.
Castlebar.
Castlebar is
soon.
It's
on the
big
way
town.
Right.
But
you went to school in Castlebar.
I went to school in Castlebar.
And did you hear about this course within the school?
Well, I found it in the school during career guidance. We were told to look for courses, and it was like on one of them websites that you find courses on. And I found it through that, and I just thought it was interesting, so I put it on my CEO.
And what does UNESCO City of Film mean to you now? Does it mean anything at all?
Well, I suppose the positive aspects is it means Galway is recognised as a place where film is made, and also I think, is there funding involved or something?
One of the things that Bradford in England was the first city of film. Then you have I think Galway was perhaps the second or third. You have Sydney in Australia. You have a city in South Korea of all places, and you also have Sofia in Bulgaria. So these different random cities, usually chosen for their closest to nice locations and kind of a willingness to embrace film, So I guess you can see that a bit in Galway. I was in the Galway shopping centre just a few days ago when they were filming Jack Taylor.
Yeah.
And I was like going through kind of, an LA set. It's really,
it's
Galway's
strange,
really
it's
coming up.
surreal walking through. Like I was walking through Well Park and all these big lights and these guys with walkie-talkies, extras everywhere, and I'm just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, it's very surprising, but it's a nice surprise.
It's nice to see that it's so close to us.
Yeah.
Films in production and everything. It almost feels like it's within our grasp.
It's great. It's pretty good. I think what I see from UNESCO City of Film is that it's a step for Galway. I can already see that things are actually happening now, whereas before it was kind of more talking about it. And that just explains it. Like, that was the first time I walked into Galway and I saw a massive set. Like, the Air Square was lit up with lights, and it made me excited for the future, to be honest.
Sure, yeah.
Because it gave me potential, because it was right in front of my eyes. That in my head it came out as I could be here in a few years.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the whole thing.
What about actually shooting in Galway? Actually, you guys are from different towns, quite near to Galway. From we got Mullingar, Harry, you're from Clarenbridge.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you find actually shooting in Galway, or even different projects we've done? Do you find it easy enough? Do you find people get in the way? I mean, do you find it?
We shot on Shop Street there for our documentary, and we thought it'd pose a lot of problems, but it didn't really. It maybe sound, but apart from that, it's pretty fine.
They're almost used to
the boom pole might attract the odd weirdo over to you, but that'll be the height.
Boom poles do attract weirdos, for whatever reason.
Don't want to just tell you their life story, and it's just please stop. Like, but no, I find it's not too bad. Like, yeah.
Just the one problem is, though, because I'm from Galway myself. When you walk down Shop Street, because we're Irish, you're gonna know a few people. Like, I keep bumping into people, and it's difficult when you're filming or people are like, "Oh, how are you? How are you getting on?" and try to stop and talk to you, but you're in the middle of recording something. It just interferes, and that's the one. But that's not really a bad thing, though. In the end of it, because
that's the flip side for being so popular, Harry.
That's
around town. I suppose as well. You're told not to complain about it ever, but the weather in Galway as well, it really is something to think about. Thinking about it completely.
I think if Galway had, whether that was like Spain or France, it would be the best city in the world. And words can't even describe how amazing Galway is when it's sunny. The good mood and everything, just the atmosphere, is great.
Have you seen many films or even TV series? You mentioned Jack Taylor earlier on, which is on Netflix. Have you seen many things shot in Galway?
I think I saw the same thing in Air Square, Jack Taylor. I think I probably saw someone shooting something down in the canal by the cathedral, but I don't know what that was. It could have been Jack Taylor again. It could be something else.
Have you seen the finished production?
I have seen it. I haven't gone to watching it, but I thought, it was being shot here. I might as well look. It was funny seeing Galway and places that I got to know over the past few months. Being on Netflix of all things.
Exactly, being utilised in such a way. I've kind of grew up in Galway, and just to see your hometown being used in this, in this dramatic way, it's very interesting.
And it's being used as Galway. It's not like I think it's Vancouver in Canada, which is it's never shot as Vancouver. It's always shot as some American city like New York.
Sure, it fills in for other locations.
So it's never Vancouver.
Well, the books now of Jack Taylor they were written by Ken Bruin, and he had always had a very good sense of place within Galway. It was almost like a noir novel set within Galway. So it gave Galway this kind of sleazy kind of side.
Which it does have.
It's been brought. It does. It has more than now. As Galway has kind of expanded. So it's interesting to see that kind of played out in films. Film wise,
100%.
Speaking of Galway as a place to show film and to readily make films now, even as we're in our first year, you recently submitted a film called Psychopathic Santa to Little Cinema down there in Roisin Dubh. How did you find that process?
To be honest, at the time it was very stressful, because we filmed on the Sunday, and it was screened in the Little Cinema in Roisin Dubh on the Wednesday, so we literally had 3 days.
Very short.
And it was stressful, but at the same time it was very enjoyable, because it was friends from college, and I'd certainly do it again. but like
it was yourself and a few college friends got together and decided to make this script that you had wrote.
I'd written it a few weeks prior. I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling on side projects as well as the projects that were going on in college at that time. It was very like when people were watching your film on a screen right in front of you and you could see their reactions. It gave you this motivation to do more.
I can imagine. It got a lot of laughter as well.
Yeah, which was great. Like I was very nervous about it. Like, and you had to go up and talk about it. So, like, you have it all prepared in your head when you're going up, but when you were on that stage in front of all these people, it just goes out the door really.
Yeah.
You pause.
For anyone who hasn't seen the film I keep calling it Psychopathic Santa. Psychopathic Santa involves Santa and his elf about to rob a house, and they actually they end up getting into the house and everything, and it's soundtracked by yourself as well.
Myself and Luke actually.
Yourself and Luke did the kind of good way of getting around the copyright fringes.
Yeah, which is difficult.
It was very impromptu when we did it. We were sitting there. You were sitting there editing, and you just said, "Well, what we do for the soundtrack?" We just said, "Like, we'll go into the sound room and just do the soundtrack ourselves." Like, and
it took us 5 minutes. It only took we did 2 takes on it, and the second take was perfect.
Yeah,
and that's what we used.
And how do you find getting everyone together? I mean, so you have a script that you want to get some side projects off the ground. How do you find getting everyone together? The actors, the cameraman, everything.
Well, everyone in our course is very like motivated, so anyone would jump off their seat to help you out, which is great. And I'd be willing to help anyone out in our course as well. The time I literally I got the crew together in one day. I was just literally talking to people around college. It wasn't as if I had picked certain people to be in certain crews.
Yeah.
I just people were like, I'll help, and I didn't even have to ask them in the end. So it was great. It was really cool.
Really good fun shoot.
Yeah.
Really. Like we didn't have to rent any gear because everyone had something to bring to the table, and
submitting it to Little Cinema. How was that process? You just submitted it online?
I submitted it online. My producer at the time, Tim Meany, he messaged Kenny Gohan and we got through to him and we got it screened.
Very good.
Yeah.
It was during a kind of a Christmas edition.
It was the Christmas edition, yeah.
I'm interested, guys, on films you've watched. Have they changed since you started studying film?
Oh, 100%,
Yeah, definitely.
The view, like your view on film, like especially mine, has changed drastically. I used to watch films and I kind of just like understand the kind of editing and stuff like that. But when you're studying film, you're kind of like, well, that's bad editing, that's good editing, that's bad sound, that's good sound, that's a really nice shot, that's a bad shot.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of appreciate films more when you study it.
Sure.
It's really interesting.
Like you find a film has to be that's jarring very well for you to forget all that, which means I suppose that's very well based because you're not noticing any flaws because maybe there aren't any or very few. Like Room.
Lenny Abraham's
I was just there in Room, which was because that was a very well made film.
And it's great that film can still transport us so amazingly, even though we're studying the process of it and everything, you know. With Room, I mean, it's up for an Oscar and everything as best film. Do you find there's a kind of a buzz around now that there's a few Irish directors within the Oscars?
I think it's a huge buzz and it's still building. Like I think these directors are finally getting the recognition they deserve. Like I think Lenny Abrahamson had fantastic films. Like Frank was
Frank is great. Yeah,
Frank is great. Yeah.
And now he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. So fair play to him.
Even like years ago, people were quoting Adam and Paul left, right, and centre. You know, you know that it really are films like. He really did kind of capture the zeitgeist with a lot of his films.
Was Brooklyn directed by an Irish director?
Brooklyn was directed by John Crowley. Yeah, he did. Interestingly, he did Intermission. I don't know if you remember Intermission with Colin Farrell playing like kind of.
Yeah, I think I've seen it when I was younger. Was it one of those? Was it on the RTE?
Yeah, it would have been. And I also did. I really recommend you check out Intermission. And he also did. True Detective, a few episodes.
Brilliant series.
As well. Yeah, True Detective 2. Actually, he did a few of those. So, guys, I just want to get down to the bare essentials of studying film. I mean, what do you gravitate towards more? So let's talk about editing. Let's talk about the audio side of it. What do you find yourself being more attracted to as a creator on the creative side?
At the moment now, I'd be really attracted to photography and cinematography. I just felt like I invested in a DSLR camera, I think the second month of college, and I just fell in love with it. And I bring my camera and take pictures, and I want to learn, and the mature students help so much with that. Yeah. You know, learning the way around the camera and how to shoot stuff. And
there's a lot of equipment to get to know, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of equipment to get your head around.
It's a bit daunting at first, but the more you play around with it, the more you learn, and I find it's just brilliant.
And what about yourself, Harry?
I came into this course with a broad mind. I didn't want to be biased towards any module, but I've taken a liking to editing, just because there's a whole world there that you can create.
Sure.
Just by using some software.
Are you good at editing other people's footage for other,
Yeah, I feel as if the editor needs to have the director's vision as well.
They need to be invested in the story as much.
So you need to have the director close by, or at least you need to know what's going on, because at the end of the day, like the film is, the quality of a film is down to the editor. Yeah. Because he's the last person to really touch on it.
He tells the story.
Yeah, and tell the story and bring this story to us, like.
Yeah, I suppose if you come out of college and you want to be an active editor, you're going to be working with other people's stories all the time. But you really do need to see the end product in your head, and you need to be invested in what you're doing in the footage. There's almost probably, I know editors who've been there on set, and I know editors who don't like to go near the set at all so they can see it fresh. But I mean, it is really interesting, that dynamic. I mean, does an editor work better when he's editing his own footage, or does he hinder himself in a way, because you keep stuff that not necessarily shouldn't be there, Yeah. What about yourself, Robin? Right?
Well, again, like Harry, I tried to go in with an open mind as possible, because I really wasn't sure what module would interest me. I found that unexpectedly 4D design actually quite interests me, which mostly because it's this mix of quite technical work, but also quite creative at the same time. Sure. And you can do things that are meant to be not seen, like touch up that color grading, color grading. Or you can do something that's obviously meant to be seen, like a dinosaur. Things like it's such a broad post-production, such a broad thing.
There's a lot to do there, as long as you have the kind of imagination. But the technical side of it, it's something you really need to kind of meticulously study, right? But but I suppose if your vision is clear enough and you want to get it done, then you will go and do that, right? Yeah. But I mean, it is interesting. When we first came in, we were told that we might change our minds and what we might want to do. You had a big idea that you wanted to do photography, perhaps. And perhaps now it's changed, and it's constantly changing. And it's probably no harm to have a good grasp of a lot of these, so you can work with your own.
You don't put all your eggs in one basket in that way.
Yeah. But do you see yourselves as directors, as writers, as crew? What do you see yourself when you're coming out at this point in time? I know it's early days.
Well, I started writing again, which was kind of surprised me, because secondary school kind of stopped my creativity in that sense. I know other people that brings it out for them, but I felt as if I was restricted in what I could say in secondary school, and seeing my creativity now since I've come out of secondary school is completely changed. Like I'm always coming up with these creative spurs that I just keep writing, and I can come up with a whole story in just one sitting.
One of the things about coming from a secondary school, like an academic secondary school, to an arts college, essentially, it really, it's kind of, you do have room to maneuver with creativity and everything else.
The writing process, especially. I found that in English in secondary school, there was little creativity you could use bar the story elements. Sure. You have to have this certain structure. You have to, the paragraphs, and it's just so structured. It kind of, it doesn't really make you want to create a story. It doesn't really make you want to be interested in the story. But like now that we're in this arts college, and it's just like, do what you want, whatever. Like you can just get really creative with it.
It probably takes a bit of getting used to, does it, Robin? I mean,
well, I mean, go back maybe the middle of last year, we had to ask about the toilet, And
it's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
And now we can
still kind of second guess yourself when you're sitting in a lecture.
That's when you feel all grown up, when you get to walk out of a lecture and go to the toilet.
I'm an adult.
And no one can say a damn thing.
Exactly. But no, it's definitely liberating. I'm sure it for any jump to third level, or it's so different. It's so you wear your own clothes. You're sort of doing specific focusing on something you like.
Yeah.
There's no maths.
Yeah, that's a big plus.
And I mean, it's one of the things as well with school. I mean, there's a lot of we've talked a lot about, does school, the education system in Ireland, does it hinder creativity and people who want to get into arts? I mean, you kind of guys are fresh out of secondary school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think did your respective schools help you out in any way to approach arts, or do you think that this is a real curveball for you guys?
From my experience in secondary school, they didn't really centre themselves on arts or film or like music or anything like that. There was the classes there, but they were like, oh, if you play guitar, do music, or if you draw, do art. It wasn't really if you're interested, do it. It was more that way, and I kind of just it was a bit difficult to get into it at that time.
Sure.
People thought it was a bit strange, like, oh, why into film? Like, I just something I want to do.
Yeah.
And they just found it a bit strange. It was very business kind of sciencey centred, and I didn't really enjoy it.
See what you mean.
I had a hard time in school just because I couldn't stick to these rules that they had placed for us, because we're growing up, we're all experimenting with different things with our haircuts and just even basic things like that. They completely kind of like had us institutionalized.
Sure.
In the sense of just doing what the teacher says, and as you said, Robin, like you have to ask to go to the bathroom. It really annoyed me. So halfway through last year, I literally just didn't go to school, and I just said, I was like, listen, I'm doing my own thing, and I was just studying myself and figured out.
You went and studied yourself?
I went into the NUIG library just every day for like I missed over 100 days of school. And my own way, I learned through myself how to study, because the way in school they taught me didn't work, and I wouldn't have gotten the points I did if I stayed in school. Yeah. Which
it's interesting.
Yeah. Like, cause like Mum was like, oh, do you want to drop out, anything like that? And I was like, no, I have my own way and I'm just doing it. And
were you ever given those like the sheets where you tick all these boxes, like if you're in a situation and you tick what, like A, B, C or D, what you do in that situation, and at the end of it you'd get what course
to tell you what you should do.
All I got was science and this other stuff. I was like, I don't want to do it, but this is what the sheet's telling me, and then the guidance counsellor's like, oh, if that's what the sheet's telling you, that's what you have to do.
At the end of the day, it comes down to, at the end of the day, a choice on a list. You know, people who wish to go back to go to college after school, it comes down to a pretty, not much choice there, and ticking a box basically, I suppose, with filmmaking as well, one thing we probably learned that the process of making a film is relentless. It's relentless, and you're kept going and you're working after hours, and
there are no hours.
Exactly, that's one thing.
Hours.
Exactly, but I suppose if you're in that frame of mind where you need to get something done, and you're constantly thinking about deadlines, that's one thing as well as kind of thrust into us is deadline. If you are constantly trying to get something done, you will get it done. You will put in the hours no matter where you find them. But that is one thing as well. I mean, as you're coming from secondary school, the fact that this is all times of the day, this is non-stop in a way. How are you finding that? I mean, do you find that you process that a little bit, or?
Well, personally, I've always been terrible with deadlines, procrastination. Yeah. But it's different. Well, it's different because the things we're being told to do is more something I want to do it. Sure. Like I have more motivation to do it. It's still difficult, obviously, especially things like essays. But I think it's definitely different than secondary school. In secondary school, you switched off when you left, whereas you can't really switch off because you're doing a project that involves filming outside of college time. You have to organize all that. Yeah. Or you're doing it's definitely more work, but it's better work. Yeah.
It's more rewarding as well. That feeling when you're finished and it's all done, and it's just this huge feeling of relief and
there's something solid there to show your work.
Well, I like actually getting up in the morning and coming to college, which is like the most important thing. Yeah. Because that's your beginning point if you can do that and you actually enjoy doing the work, it's not work at the end of the day. It's just something that you're going to do.
Exactly. I suppose what a lot of people don't realise about filmmaking, especially a kind of quite a practical course here in GMIT Film and Documentary, but how much theory is involved, and there is plenty of theory involved in that. From production design, for colour theory and cinematography. I mean, there is a lot of theory involved. Do you find that balance between theory and being practical? Do you find it? Do they outweigh each other, or do you find it a struggle?
It's kind of a mix. Like I don't mind the theory and I love the practical, and you kind of have to know the theory to be good at the practical as well. So they kind of work well with each other, and it's very balanced in this course anyway. Yeah, I find
you kind of have to accept that though. Like there's always going to be theory involved with everything. And it's not greatly difficult. It's something, and it's actual good information to learn anyways. Sure. So it is enjoyable. And
it's good to have a reference point of history with everything that you're doing and everything like that.
You can always look back on these notes. Like, it's not just something that you'll throw away after the leaving cert. It's something you'll have for life with you. All these information.
Even the chance to verbalize what you want to say about your work or other directors' work. I mean, it does take a while to be able to have the language for film to be able to do that. We've all started pitching and everything. How do you find that process of yapping about film in a way to get your ideas across?
It's difficult to get the language right. Yeah. It really depends on your background in talking to groups of people. Like I was lucky in that I did it before. Yeah. But like for some people don't like speaking in public, and it's totally understandable. Sure. But pitching is interesting because you want to be a good speaker. We also want to sound like you know what you're talking about, because they think you don't know what you're talking about, then they won't back you. Yeah. Which is the most important thing. Sort of have it structured, which I'm not very good at. Yeah.
There's an element of blagging or kind of almost bullshit involved in how you present yourself and how you present an idea for a film. You have to appear.
You're selling it to them pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, you're being a salesman essentially for a while, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you're either you can either do that, you can either talk like that, or you can. So you have to teach yourself to do. I think one thing that we're told throughout this course is that the guys who don't make an effort to do that, even as simple crew members who have to keep their mouth shut in crew, won't be able to sell themselves as filmmakers. So it's kind of something that really, it's quite important, and it can be difficult as well. But I suppose when you are going back to being with our classmates and stuff, I suppose when you are in that safe surroundings, it helps, because no one's out to kind of shove each other. Have you known anyone to do this course before, or anyone who's studying film in Galway or otherwise?
I think everyone knows someone who's done this course. I
don't know anyone.
I feel I've met so many people who, because we're Irish, as I said before, everyone knows everyone, and I had an uncle's sister's daughter who did this 20 years ago. Like everyone, I mightn't have known these people, but I know of them who did this course, and it's pretty interesting how I know a good few people from other people who actually did this course, and I heard anything bad about this course, so that's what I'm kind of looking at.
Is there any projects, guys, that you have in mind, or even intentions for your own films in the future? Is there anything that you would like to do with them, bearing in mind the technology that we have and the different aspects of filmmaking that we're going into? I'll start with yourself, Robin.
I'm interested in basically portraying history in a way that draws you in, that makes you feel like you're there. Yeah. Because a lot of times, especially older history, we disassociate ourselves from it, even though we think, those people weren't like us, even though they were like us, they were us. Yeah. So it might help in sort of understanding history a bit more, especially with the whole VR technology that's coming in. That could be very interesting, for museum pieces and stuff like that. You can film with 3D camera as like a set,
reconstruct the past in that way.
Like a set that's made it look like a medieval village, and someone could put on a headset and walk around and imagine they're there, and they're all speaking in the how they would have spoken and all that. I think that would be an interesting thing.
I suppose it's one of the great things about the course as well, that you can bring in other passions
Yeah.
and utilize them in a way. I mean, you have the power to be able to do something with it and tell stories with your passions. It's kind of it's amazing. Any of you guys, I mean, what do you have in mind for what you'd like to do with film?
I'd love to make films that kind of send a message and make an impact with people.
Yeah.
Like I'm really interested in making a film to do with mental health and kind of to highlight stuff for people.
Yeah.
And it's just something I just want to start doing and making. And also, like, I kind of want to make time lapses and stuff like that around Galway City.
Play around with that kind of stuff as well,
and capture the culture of the city, maybe.
Yeah.
In film, you know. That'd be about it, though.
One of the things with film, we're told it's lowbrow entertainment. The fact that it is lowbrow is that it reaches so many people.
Yeah.
But they power within that.
Yeah.
I mean, and how easy you can send, it's not easy to send a pamphlet to someone and they're either going to toss it away or not read it. But they power within that to send a video to someone, and you're going to give it a look anyways. The power we have to tell stories and to send messages and to recreate the past, whatever you say. Harry, what about yourself? Any?
I want to kind of highlight things in Ireland, or even globally, about society, kind of our views on religion, our views on drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
All them type of things. That I have a very strong opinion on these things, and I feel as if I can add to something in the world with my intentions of filming on these on these topics.
Sure.
I also wanted to do a documentary on the Camino. It's a pilgrimage. Around Spain. People do it for so many different reasons, and I'd love to see people's interview people along the way that I meet, not just because I do it as I'm filming this documentary. And my parents did it there a few years ago. What they've told me, and there's a film called The Way.
The Way.
It really inspired me to do something like this. So that's just what I'm kind of looking at right now.
There's a lot of scope there for stories and for different range of people. You're obviously interested in people and their stories.
Yeah, the storytelling and
what we can learn from
them. People's backgrounds is what I kind of want to aim at while doing the pilgrimage. This mightn't be for another few years, until I improve myself.
But it's good to have a kind of a vision of what you're kind of trying to do with your film. Just a few questions before we end off, guys. I try to ask this for every podcast. Is now at this early stage, I mean, what do we think of the lack of women in film? I mean, can you see it now at this early stage that it's more difficult for women, or I mean, do you have any solutions to this? I mean, start with yourself, Robin.
Well, we were doing a film quiz a while back, and one of the questions was how many women have won the Oscars. And I think we guessed about 10 or something. I think it was 4 or less even. And this is the entire history of the Oscars from whenever it started in the 20s, 30s. I think the issue of that is we want as many perspectives as possible, and if women aren't directing or making films or in whatever capacity, or they're not being, if they are not being sort of put out there, then that's sort of a lack of perspective. So they want perspective, which is our perspective, men's perspective, which is fine. Our perspective is fine. We need as many as possible to sort of have a full perspective of the human race.
Absolutely,
to suppose to fix it, just sort of keep promoting it and telling people that that's an option for them.
It's probably a lack of women role models who are celebrated that keeps women down in the first place. In a way, it kind of, we all need our influence.
Even
we all need
that whole archetype of damsel in distress and things like that in film. In this day and age, it's kind of just a bit disgusting and stale to see in film now. You just kind of want to do away with it. It's been done so many times before.
Or do something interesting.
There's not enough strong female characters. And an example of someone trying to make a strong female character but it not quite working out would be Mad Max, as in Furiosa's character. But they kind of made her masculine in a way. But why can't they make a female character that's female but also strong? It doesn't need to.
It's an interesting balance to get right.
It's a very interesting one.
I came into this course thinking that there'd be more females than males, and I was amazed when I came in here and there was, out of 56 of us or around that, there was only about 13 women,
Yeah.
which it was an eye opener really.
And even less want to direct.
Yeah.
Which isn't like that's their choice, but like I mean, I wonder.
There's not a divide. You don't see any divide there, do you?
No.
I mean, there's no shunning. Like there's no shunning where the men are going to go and do this. Like it really is collaborative within both genders. So it's interesting that this problem really it seems to be coming around a little bit. But I mean, to find ways to fix it and to include women is something that we definitely should be thinking of. It's just an interesting question. Yeah. Diversity in film anyway. With all the issue with the Oscars and the fact that there's not enough diversity shown, that kind of goes down to the fact that there's only a few films shown, and mainly American, and mainly white stories that are, the foreign films aren't included. They have their own little section.
Yeah,
I think
foreign film,
exactly. I think a kind of a more global view on film is kind of needed for everyone,
I think there should be a change in perception of the Oscars as not being a global film.
And people do think it is global.
It's just an American film, which is
exactly.
fine. It's their thing, but there should be a thing that's higher than the Oscars. That's also is an important media event. Which there probably is something higher than the Oscars that goes throughout the world, but definitely isn't a media event. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to visit festivals and such in the future, just to kind of get a sense of that. One thing I would definitely advise you guys to kind of keep a more global outlet on film and kind of discover film from all around the world, even for influences and to see some more styles as well.
Yeah, because we watched that Russian film. It was
Tarkovsky's The Mirror.
It made me realize how we're so stuck in this structure, that American structure for the American kind of dream, and it completely opened my eyes to this other structure of film. We're like, we're just so used to this structure.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? And I suppose we have some really kind of unconventional Irish filmmakers as well. Neil Jordan, for example, who have worked within the American kind of system, But there's always scope there, isn't it, to push boundaries and to try to do something different. I suppose that goes hand in hand with who we hire as our actors and writing more women roles and everything else. But listen, guys, it's been absolutely a pleasure to have you all on. And best of luck in the year ahead. I'm really looking forward to working with you on some projects and everything else. So
thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
You too, guys. This has been a Galway Film Podcast. Anyone with any feedback or anything, just let me know and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much.